Welcome to Mind Care as Self-Care. Protect your peace, reclaim your mind. Why you feel like an imposter in your own life after transformation. You prayed for change, you worked for change, you survived the process of becoming someone new, and yet now that your life has actually shifted, something unexpected is happening inside you. Instead of feeling fully confident, you feel uncertain. Instead of feeling like you belong, you feel like you're pretending. Instead of celebrating your progress, you're quietly questioning whether you deserve it at all. This is one of the most misunderstood emotional experiences after transformation, and it often gets mislabeled as weakness or self-doubt, when in reality it is something much more structural happening inside your mind and nervous system. What you are experiencing is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that your internal identity has not yet fully synchronized with your external reality. Your life updated faster than your self-image did. And when that gap appears, the mind creates tension. It tries to reconcile two versions of you that no longer match. One version still carries the emotional memory of struggle, limitation, and survival. The other version is living in a newer reality that requires confidence, openness, and stability. When those two versions overlap, the result is cognitive dissonance, and that dissonance often feels like imposter syndrome. The brain does not prioritize truth in the way we think it does. It prioritizes familiarity. Familiar patterns feel safe, even if they are outdated. So even when your external world improves, your nervous system may still be calibrated to an older version of your life, where effort, doubt, or scarcity were the norm. That is why success can feel uncomfortable. Not because success is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. This creates what can be called an identity lag. Your environment updates quickly, but your internal narrative updates slowly. You might now be in rooms you once dreamed of entering, but internally you still feel like someone who is not quite ready. You might now be receiving recognition, but internally you still feel like you need to earn permission to accept it. You might now have more stability, but internally you still brace for instability. This mismatch creates emotional friction that gets interpreted as, "I don't belong here." But belonging is not something you earn through struggle. It is something you integrate through repetition and acceptance. One of the most important things to understand is that the imposter feeling is often strongest immediately after growth. Not before it, but after it. That is because growth disrupts identity continuity. When you were struggling, your identity had a clear narrative. You knew how to operate inside limitation. You knew how to navigate uncertainty. You knew how to survive that version of life. But transformation removes those familiar coordinates. Suddenly, you're in a new environment where old rules no longer apply, and the mind temporarily loses orientation. In that disorientation, the subconscious attempts to pull you backward into familiarity. It does this by generating doubt. It questions your competence. It minimizes your achievements. It makes you hyper-aware of mistakes. It convinces you that you are not really ready yet. But this is not an objective assessment of your ability. It is a protective mechanism trying to return you to a known emotional baseline. Another layer of this experience comes from the internal separation between performance and identity. Many people learn to achieve things without actually updating how they see themselves. So you can perform at a higher level externally while still identifying internally with an older, less capable version of yourself. When that happens, every success feels borrowed rather than owned. Every accomplishment feels temporary rather than integrated. This is why some people feel uncomfortable receiving praise. It does not match their internal self-image. So instead of absorbing it, they deflect it, they downplay it, they attribute it to luck or timing or external help. Not because they are dishonest, but because their identity has not yet caught up to the reality that they are capable. At the root of imposter feelings is often a simple but powerful identity gap. Your life expanded faster than your self-concept. The solution is not to chase more achievement. It is to slow down internally and allow integration to happen. You do not heal this gap by proving more. You heal it by embodying what has already changed. One of the first steps is recognizing that discomfort does not mean incompatibility. Just because something feels unfamiliar does not mean it is not yours. New environments always feel slightly unreal at first. Your nervous system needs repetition to convert unfamiliar experiences into safe ones. That means the goal is not instant confidence, but gradual familiarity. Another step is learning to stay present with your current reality without immediately trying to escape it or justify it. Many people rush past their achievements mentally because they do not feel fully real inside them yet. But integration requires presence. You have to allow yourself to actually inhabit the moment of your life without dismissing it. You can also begin to consciously update your internal language. Pay attention to how you describe yourself internally. Do you still say things like, "I just got lucky," or "I'm not really that experienced," or "I hope they don't find out I'm not as good as they think"? These are not harmless thoughts. They are remnants of an older identity script. Replacing them with grounded truth statements helps the mind recalibrate. Statements like, "I earned this through consistent effort," "I am growing into this role," or "I am allowed to be here even while learning," begin to rewire internal perception. Another important practice is reducing comparison. Comparison keeps your mind anchored to external validation rather than internal alignment. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you reinforce the belief that belonging is conditional. But integration requires internal stability, not external ranking. There is also a deeper emotional layer that deserves attention: grief. Transformation often involves letting go of a former version of yourself that once protected you. Even if that version was insecure or limited, it still served a purpose. It helped you survive. It helped you navigate earlier stages of life. So when you outgrow it, there can be a quiet sense of loss. Not everything about the old identity disappears cleanly. Sometimes it lingers as emotional residue. That residue can feel like self-doubt. But what you are really experiencing is transition, not fraudulence. The goal is not to eliminate the imposter feeling instantly, but to understand what it is pointing to. It is pointing to an unfinished integration process. It is pointing to the space between who you were and who you are becoming. And that space, while uncomfortable, is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of movement. Over time, as you repeatedly show up in your new reality, your nervous system begins to adapt. Your identity begins to stabilize. Your internal narrative begins to align with your external experience. And what once felt foreign slowly becomes normal. What once felt like performance becomes natural expression. What once felt like uncertainty becomes grounded presence. One day you will notice something subtle but powerful. The voice of doubt becomes quieter, not because it was forced away, but because it no longer matches your lived experience. You will no longer feel like you are acting in your own life. You will simply be living it. And that is the real transition point. Not when everything changes outside you, but when you finally believe you belong inside what has already changed. So if you are feeling like an imposter right now, do not rush to fix yourself. Pause, observe, understand what is actually happening. You are not broken. You are integrating. And integration takes time, but it is already underway. Thank you for joining Mind Care is Self-Care. Protect your peace, reclaim your mind. Until next time, Protect your peace, reclaim your mind, and remember, your healing deserves your attention.